In the story of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, one name dominates the headlines: the Gracie family. Their narrative of challenge matches, street fights, and the rise of a global martial art is legendary. But behind that myth, in the shadow of Rio's favelas and the backroom of army barracks, there was another man. A man who taught the same art, not to the rich and powerful, but to soldiers, to workers, and to the poor. His name was Luiz França Filho, and his story might just change what you think about the origins of Jiu-Jitsu. This is the Grapple with Rai Show, episode 46, Luiz Franca. Hello and welcome to the Grapple with Rai Show. I'm your host Brett Summers, and today we are looking at the life of one of BJJ's forgotten founders, Luiz Franca. Now, Luiz França Filho was born on June 2nd, 1910 in Manaus, Brazil, in the heart of the Amazon, a place where the heat never sleeps and the port bustles with trade, noise and opportunity. At 15 years old, Franca began learning a new martial art that had just arrived in Brazil, Judo, or as it is often called at the time, Jiu-Jitsu Japonese. His teacher was Soshihiro Satake, one of the first Japanese immigrants to Brazil to open a legitimate Judo and Jiu-Jitsu school. Satake's academy was housed inside the Atlético Club Rio Negro, the first Judo Jiu-Jitsu school run by a Japanese instructor in Brazil. At that little club Manaus, the young Luiz Franca trained with unshakable dedication. He was there every day, never missing a class. Among his training partners was a man named Vinicius Ruas, who decades later would become president of the Rio de Janeiro Judo Federation, and whose nephew, Marco Ruas, would go on to become a Vale Judo and UFC champion. Franca's early exposure to Judo wasn't just about combat, it was about discipline, structure, and a bridge between two worlds, Japanese martial arts traditions and Brazilian grit. After about a year in Manaus, Franca moved east to the port city of Belém do Pará, unknowingly stepping into the same city where another key figure, Mitsuyo Maeda, also known as Count Koma, was teaching. It's the same academy where Carlos Gracie was beginning his own journey in Jiu-Jitsu. But here's where things start to blur. The traditional account of Luiz Franca's journey, repeated on websites, in books, and in oral tradition of the Fadda lineage, paints an incredible picture. It claims Franca trained directly under three of the most important Japanese instructors in Brazil's early grappling scene: Soshihiro Satake in Manaus, Mitsuyo Maeda in Belém, and Geo Omori in Sao Paulo. If true, that would make Franca one of the most completely trained Brazilians of his era, a man who absorbed the techniques and philosophies of all three Japanese pioneers. Imagine the knowledge he would have carried: Maeda's global grappling experiences, Satake's Kodokan discipline, and Omori's aggressive randori style. But here's the problem. No one from that period, not Maeda's students, not the newspapers, not even the academy records, ever mention him. Between 1910 and the 1930s, dozens of articles documented matches, demonstrations and rivalries between Brazil's early jiu-jitsu figures. The Gracies, the Ono brothers, Donato Pires, Takeo Yano, they're all there, constantly mentioned. But Luiz Franca, not once. Researchers like Robert Drysdale, who dug through police files and old newspapers, say they found no evidence of Franca training with any of those Japanese masters. No tournament results, no academy announcements, no teaching contracts. The first confirmed mention of anyone named Luiz Franca appears in 1928, not in a jiu-jitsu context, but on a boxing tournament registration list in Rio. That's it. So the question becomes, was Luiz Franca truly a disciple of these legends, or was that story later constructed to provide legitimacy to a rival lineage, one outside of the Gracie family control? Whether or not these stories of Satake, Maeda and Omori are true, there's one thing that isn't disputed. By the late 1930s, Luiz Franca was teaching jiu-jitsu in Rio de Janeiro. But not in the city's glamorous zones. Oh no, he lived and taught on the outskirts, in the working class neighbourhoods, among the poor people and among the forgotten. He opened his gym doors to everyone: police officers, soldiers, labourers, kids from the favelas who could barely afford shoes, let alone any jiu-jitsu tuition. While the Gracies built their brand around exclusivity, showmanship and challenge matches, Franca built his around community. He didn't advertise, he didn't issue public challenges, he didn't stage fights for publicity, he just taught, quietly, persistently, for nearly 6 decades. His focus was self-defense, not sport. His mission wasn't to create champions, it was to give people, especially the poor, the means to protect themselves. Out of those modest rooms on Rio's outskirts came a young Marine named Oswaldo Fadda, the man who would become Franca's greatest student and carry his torch forward. Fadda was born in 1920. When he met Luiz Franca, it was around 1937. He was 17 years old and serving in the Brazilian Marines. Under Franca's guidance, Fadda learned judo and jiu-jitsu not for tournaments but for survival. By 1942, Franca had promoted him to black belt. Fadda's goal mirrored his teachers, to bring jiu-jitsu to the people who couldn't afford to train in the city's elite academies. He taught children with disabilities, he handmade gis and gave them away, he ran classes in open fields, on dirt, and sometimes on bare feet. While the Gracies taught politicians, actors and upper-class clients in downtown Rio, the Franca and Fadda lineage spread throughout factory workers and the urban poor. And for a long time, the Gracies ignored them until Fadda issued a challenge that forced them to pay attention. It was 1951. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world was still small, but tensions were already simmering between the Gracie Academy and other schools. That year, Fadda sent an open challenge to the Gracies, inviting their students to compete against his team. Hideo Gracie accepted, and the competition was booked for the Gracie Academy. Gracies expected an easy win. After all, who were these unknowns from the suburbs? But what happened next became one of the most symbolic moments in jiu-jitsu history. A number of Fadda students won their matches decisively, and their weapon of choice was footlocks, techniques that the Gracies considered dirty and low class, but these so-called low class moves neutralized the Gracie advantage. There were reports stating that Fadda's team won at making better use of their footlock knowledge, something Hideo frowned upon and was quoted as calling it a suburban technique. This was according to Hideo Gracie in a biography of Carlos Gracie. The highlight of the tournament was apparently when Fadda's pupil Jose Guimarães choked out a Gracie representative, Lineage, and put him to sleep. After the event, a humbled Gracie told reporters, "All you need is one Fadda to show that Jiu-Jitsu is not the Gracie's privilege." That moment and that quote is Luiz Franca's legacy made real. A teacher of the poor, through his student, had proven the mastery of Jiu-Jitsu was not bound by money, marketing, or bloodline. The event had good media coverage, which had a double effect. While the victories gave Oswaldo's team notoriety and more students, it also brought interest of all the hard men of the nearby towns, who would often stop by Fadda's academy to issue challenges to Master Oswaldo and his students. These challenges gained such proportions that Master Fadda decided to start taking one day off from the weekly schedule, where he closed the doors of the academy to fight any challengers. It is said that the Jiu-Jitsu player never lost a fight. Through Oswaldo Fadda, Luiz Franca's teaching spread far beyond the favelas. His student and their students and their students would go on to shape some of the most influential academies in modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu history. From Fadda's lineage came a number of teams, including the GF team, Nova Urinal, and the Master Wilson Academy, and through them came the likes of Jose Aldo, BJ Penn, Leonardo Santos, Robson Moura, Rodolfo Vieira, Victor Sheldon Ribeiro, Jacquet, and a number of others. These athletes represent not just modern Jiu-Jitsu, but the continuation of an idea born in the 1930s in the slums of Rio, that Jiu-Jitsu belongs to everyone. So even if Luiz Franca's name isn't printed on certificates or shouted out on UFC broadcasts, his influence flows invisibly through the veins of modern grappling. But his controversy has never really gone away. As mentioned, Robert Drysdale argues Franca's supposed training under Maeda, Satake and Imura lacks any verifiable proof, and in interviews Drysdale suggests that Franca may have been self-taught, someone who learned techniques by observation, by experimentation, and what we now call garage grappling. He compares Franca to the early Americans of the 1900s who learned from tapes and books and pieced together submissions without having black belts to guide them. Others, like Andre Borge of BJJHeroes.com, disagree. Borge states that while the historical records are sparse, dismissing Franca as self-taught goes too far. He reminds us that not every training session in 1916 had a newspaper clipping to prove it. So maybe Franca did train with those masters, but briefly, informally, or under the radar, or maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Even the picture we use for this episode is believed to be Franca, but historians are not 100% certain on that. But that is the paradox of Luiz Franca. He might be the most trained and least documented Brazilian grappler of his generation. So what do we do with a story like this? A man who might have learned from legends or might have just taught himself. A man who left almost no records, yet changed the direction of entire martial art. Maybe we should start asking whether Luiz Franca's lineage is legitimate and start asking what legitimacy really means. Because his students learned to defend themselves. His students learned dignity, confidence and community. And through them, he built something that outlasted any marketing campaign. Luiz Franca never sought fame, he didn't put his name on challenge posters, he didn't have a family dynasty to defend, he had a mat, a few students and a mission. And now today, every fighter from the teams mentioned previously raises their hand in victory, and that is the spirit of the man who is still there, gripping, sweeping and submitting in the shadows, but never gone. This has been the Grapple with Rye. I've been your host, Brett Summers, and this has been the story of Luiz Franca, the forgotten founder of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your teammates, your coach, and anyone else who likes digging into the roots of grappling history. We'll be back next week with another episode when we have another guest lined up. In the meantime, you can check all of our previous episodes out on our mothership, thegrapplewithride.com. We are also on social media. You can check out our Facebook and Instagram. They're our main ones, but we're also on TikTok, X, and all the other ones as well. New episodes drop every Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. The video episode will be available on YouTube, where please, if you'd like to subscribe and allow notifications and like and comment on the videos, that helps us out so much. If you're somebody who likes to listen to your podcast, we are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and all the other podcast distributors. If you've got a podcast app, have a look. We're on there somewhere. And again, any follows, ratings, and reviews on there, again, really do help us out. So it's all appreciated. Anyway, that brings this episode to an end. We'll be back next week, as I say. So stay safe and stay on the mats.